Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan has rejected Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's belligerent rhetoric as irresponsible. In a statement, the Foreign Office says such provocative statements illustrate the extremist mindset of Indian leadership. It added that Modi is trying to divert attention from occupied Kashmir and India's domestic chaos. The Foreign Office urged the international community to take notice of India's aggressive measures, posing a threat to peace in the region. It said Pakistan's effective response to India's Balakot misadventure should be enough to underscore the preparedness of the armed forces. Pakistan has temporarily shut down its Torkham border with Afghanistan, citing security reasons. In a statement, the Foreign Office said the step has been taken after 2 mortars were fired from across the border. The spokesperson, Aisha Faruqi, said Islamabad is raising the issue with the Afghan government. She said there were no casualties in the incident and step is being taken as a precautionary measure. She said the Torkham border will most likely be opened soon. 15 Afghan security personnel have been reportedly killed by a Taliban attack in northern Kunduz province. Provincial officials say the attack targeted a joint security force base in the district of Dasht-e-Archi. The officials said 8 soldiers and 5 policemen were also wounded in the ambush. For their part, the Taliban put the death toll at 35 and also claimed to have seized 4 soldiers. Spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said fighters also seized a large volume of weapons and equipment. U.S. forces have recovered 2 bodies near the wreckage of a military aircraft that crashed in Afghanistan's Ghazni province. The Taliban had claimed they shot down the bombardier E-11A used for battlefield communications on Monday. A U.S. military statement said the bodies were treated with dignity and respect by the local Afghan community. It said U.S. forces found and recovered the flight data recorder for analysis and destroyed the wreckage. The military repeated there are no indications the crash was caused by an enemy fire. In Iraq, President Barham Saleh has threatened to choose an interim prime minister if parliament fails to nominate a candidate by the 1st of February. Adil Abdul Mahdi resigned as prime minister in November under pressure from the street protests, but has remained in office in a caretaker capacity. According to Iraq's constitution, parliament's largest bloc must nominate a prime minister within 15 days of the legislative elections. The candidate is then appointed by the president and tasked with forming a government within 1 month. Over 450 people have been killed in the country since anti-government protests began in October last year. Yemen's Houthi rebels have claimed attacking multiple sites in Saudi Arabia, including the state-owned Aramco facility in Jazan. Houthis Al-Masirah television reports the attacks targeted Saudi Arabia's Aba airport, Khamis Mushait base and other sites. It said Aba and Jazan airports were targeted with a large number of rockets and drones. However, Aramco has declined to comment on the Houthi claim. U.S. President Donald Trump has unveiled his Middle East peace plan, calling for the 2 states with a Palestinian capital in parts of East Jerusalem. The proposal also calls for the recognition of illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank in exchange for a 4-year ban on new settlements. More in this report.
After 2 years of discussion, the US president unveiled his long-awaited Middle East plan with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Trump's self-proclaimed deal of the century has eschewed global consensus on the Palestinian conflict. Among other pro-Israeli tilts, the plan denies Palestinian refugees their right of return. But Trump claims otherwise.
My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides. A realistic 2-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security.
Palestinians have rejected the plan as a political circus. President Mahmoud Abbas called it a conspiracy.
I say to the partners Trump and Netanyahu, Jerusalem is not for sale. All our rights are not for sale and are not for bargain. And your deal, the conspiracy, will not pass.
Rejecting the plan, Hamas officials said they won't accept any substitute for Jerusalem as the capital of the Palestinian state. Thousands of Palestinians protested in the Gaza Strip after the plan was unveiled, chanting slogans against Israel and the US.
Prominent U.S. lawmakers have criticized President Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan, calling it lopsided and impractical.
Democratic presidential frontrunner Bernie Sanders called the plan unacceptable, saying it will only perpetuate the conflict. Sanders said any acceptable deal must end the Israeli occupation of the UN-recognized Palestinian territory. He said it must allow Palestinian self-determination, independent state of their own, alongside a secure Israel. His fellow presidential candidate, Senator Elizabeth Warren, rapidly denounced the proposed deal. She called the plan a rubber stamp for annexation, offering no real chance for a Palestinian state. Warren said releasing a plan without negotiating with Palestinians isn't diplomacy, it's a sham. Senator Ilhan Omar described the scheme as shameful and disingenuous, negotiated by two impeached leaders and presented as a just us peace deal. Senator Chris Van Hollen said Trump's plan is not about advancing peace, but a timed ploy to interfere in Israeli elections.
In a related development, the UN says it is committed to helping Palestine and Israel ending their conflict with a two-state solution that uses the pre-1967 borders. In a statement, Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the UN stands by the relevant Security Council and General Assembly resolutions. The statement comes after US President Trump's new Middle East plan ignored the international consensus on the conflict. The deal calls for the legitimization of Jewish settlements, long regarded as illegal under UN resolutions, and denies Palestinian refugees the right to return. In January 2017, a UN Security Council resolution was adopted a month before Donald Trump became US president. The resolution demanded an end to illegal Israeli settlements with 14 votes in favor and 1 abstention. The Arab League has called an urgent meeting on Saturday in response to the US President Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan. The League's Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghaid says a first reading of the plan suggests Palestinians' legitimate rights will be slashed.
Ghaid said the body is carefully studying the American plan and is open to serious efforts to achieve peace. In the meantime, the Muslim world's response to the Trump plan has been mixed. Iran, Turkey and Jordan have categorically rejected the plan, calling it flawed and dead on arrival. Pakistan called for a viable and independent Palestine within the pre-1967 borders. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif has called the deal of the century a nightmare for the region. Ankara calls Trump's plan a dead deal, while Jordan says long-lasting peace can only come from the UN's 1967 border plan. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar and the UAE have all voiced their support for the scheme.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Ankara is losing patience with the ongoing military assault in Syria's Idlib. Erdogan said Russia is violating both the Astana and Sochi agreements aimed at stemming the conflict in Syria. Talking to reporters upon returning from Senegal, Erdogan said Turkey, Russia and Iran should make efforts to revive the Astana process. Renewed bombardments by the government forces on Idlib have raised concern of a new refugee wave. Earlier, Turkey wanted to retaliate against attacks on its observation posts around Idlib. Syrian government forces say they have captured the strategic rebel-held town of Marat al-Noman amid a Russia-backed military offensive. In a statement, an army spokesman said in the past few days they have seized many villages and towns, including Marat al-Noman. State media said the push into Marat al-Noman came as Syrian forces were also advancing against rebels west of the city of Aleppo. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the rebel fighters withdrew from the town late yesterday. Marat al-Noman lies on a key highway connecting Damascus to Aleppo. The renewed fighting comes despite a January 12 ceasefire deal between Turkey and Russia. The U.S. now says 50 American soldiers sustained brain injuries in the Iranian attack on its troops in Iraq. Previously, the Pentagon claimed only 11 soldiers were hurt, after which it revised the tally to 34. In a statement, the Pentagon said 31 have recovered after treatment in Iraq, while 15 were recently diagnosed. It said 18 soldiers had been sent to Germany for further evaluation and treatment, while another was sent to Kuwait. On January the 8th, Tehran fired a volley of ballistic missiles at Iraq in retaliation for the killing of Major General Qasem Soleimani. After the attack, US President Donald Trump said not a single US soldier was harmed. In the DR Congo, 15 people have been killed in the eastern region of Beni. Officials said 14 bodies have been recovered in the last 24 hours, while a pastor was killed in a separate attack. Beni officials said hundreds have died in militia violence since November last year. The ADF began as a rebel group in Uganda that opposes its president, Yoweri Museveni. It fell back into eastern DR Congo in 1995 during Congo Wars. It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The deadly coronavirus has now killed 132 people in China. The number of people infected by the virus has jumped to nearly 10,000. All of the new deaths were reported in Hubei province, except for the one in the adjoining northern province of Hainan. 56 million people in China are prevented from traveling in an attempt to contain the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, Pakistan has confirmed 4 of its students in China have tested positive for the coronavirus. The UAE has also confirmed its first case of the fatal virus. Meanwhile, British Airways has suspended direct flights to China amid virus fears. Several countries, including the US, Japan, and Australia, are evacuating their citizens from Wuhan.
We have taken a decision this morning to prepare a plan for an operation to provide some assisted departures for isolated and vulnerable Australians in Wuhan in the Hubei province.
Scientists in China and Australia have recreated copies of coronavirus to develop a diagnostic test. Doctors say the copy could be used as control material for testing and will be a game changer for the diagnosis. What about this new virus in this report?
As the death toll from coronavirus mounts, the public health response is picking up. Several coronaviruses known to scientists are present in animals without infecting humans. A novel coronavirus is a new strain whose image under the microscope is reminiscent of a solar corona.
The coronavirus is a group of viruses, a family of viruses. They have their big RNA viruses. They have actually some of the biggest RNA genomes of any virus. They predominantly cause respiratory disease in humans.
Scientists in Australia have become the first to recreate the new coronavirus outside China. They will share the discovery with the World Health Organization to help detect and treat the disease. Researchers in the US are also working on developing a test. It is based on the latest genomic information on the emerging virus and is expected to be ready soon.
We can ramp this up relatively quickly, as I said, in sort of weeks to about a month. And so we're ready, for these things all the time. We had to do this with Zika. We had to do this for enterovirus D68. We've had to do this with 2009 H1N1.
Chinese authorities say the virus is able to spread during the incubation period, but the WHO says it is not clear whether it is contagious before symptoms appear.
The European Parliament is set to vote on the terms of the UK's departure from the European Union today. The representatives will debate the Brexit withdrawal agreement in Brussels before giving their backing to the UK-EU treaty. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas says Britain will have to compromise if it wants to maintain free access to EU's single market. Maas said London will have to show flexibility on issues like consumer rights and environment protection. The European Parliament's approval is the final hurdle for Brexit to go ahead. The United Kingdom will then leave the bloc on Friday at 23 GMT. The European Parliament will debate India's controversial Citizenship Act today and vote on the resolution tomorrow. The law, considered anti-Muslim, has sparked mass protests, rallies and sit-ins across India for over a month.
In the final draft, the EU Parliament has called the law discriminatory and dangerously divisive. The joint resolution has been put forward by 560 of the Parliament's 751 MPs. The Parliament has called on New Delhi to repeal the bias amendments which violate India's international obligations. The draft also says the Act can target marginalized groups, and create large-scale statelessness of religious minorities in India. It condemned India's internet shutdown and called it a violation of the fundamental right to access information. The final resolution has been agreed on by 6 of the largest political groups in the European Parliament.
Occupied Kashmir's pro-freedom parties and organizations have warned of a possible false flag operation by Indian forces. The concern was expressed by Tehreek-e-Hurriyat Jammu and Kashmir People's League and Young Men's League. They said the arrest of police officer Davinder Singh has exposed India's hand in violent operations in the valley. They cited 2007 Samjhauta Express blast and 2001 attack on Indian Parliament as New Delhi's efforts to malign Pakistan and freedom fighters. The political parties highlighted the ongoing humanitarian health crisis and economic losses in the valley. The occupied valley is reeling under Indian lockdown and communications blackout for 178 days. In India, the government has released its 2020 budget plan, facing record unemployment and jump in inflation. Different sections of society are angered at the economic slowdown, putting Prime Minister Narendra Modi under considerable pressure. Watch about India's stuttering economy in this report.
In India, the economic slowdown has made the already difficult lives even more precarious. Every morning, hundreds of workers wait at crowded Mumbai Junction hoping to be picked up for domestic jobs. From masonry to cleaning sewage pipes. People protest that even the staple food has now become a luxury.
Work doesn't fetch as much money and the expenses are only increasing. The price of vegetables has exceptionally increased. Everything is expensive.
Many fear the new plan of the country's budgets will further widen the wealth gap between the upper and lower classes.
We have to think twice before buying anything. We have to think about whether to cook with 1 onion or 2 onions. We can't afford it.
Ranu Bogal, who runs an NGO against inequality in India, said a domestic worker works for a year to earn the same amount that a tech company CEO earns in 10 minutes.
Average income of a household in this country, which is from the periodic labor force surveys, is around 10,000 rupees per month. And given the state of the economy, the way inflation has been hitting people, food inflation particularly is an all-time high now.
The growing number of infuriated unemployed millennials are now looking at the government for job prospects.
20 people have died and 32 others injured when a bus fell off a bridge in India's eastern Odisha state. Police said the accident took place in Ganjam district. They said the bus was on its way to Berhampur city from the town of Tikri. The injured have been shifted to Berhampur and Digapahandi hospitals. Bangladesh says it will allow Rohingya children living at a refugee camp in Cox's Bazar to access formal education. The children were previously excluded from the formal curriculum, only receiving primary education in temporary learning centers. In an interview, the Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momin said Dhaka does not want a lost generation of Rohingya Muslims. He said Rohingya children will follow the Myanmar curriculum. The decision came after a meeting of a government task force. Hong Kong police are looking for 300 anti-government protesters and suspects believed to be behind a series of violent crimes. The Organized Crime and Triad Bureau says offences include possession of firearms and explosives. It denies making arbitrary arrests. The Bureau is handling serious cases from over 7 months of protests sparked by a now withdrawn extradition bill. Deputy head of the Bureau, Steve Lee Kawai says identifying the suspects is challenging and time-consuming. Over 7,000 people have been arrested since the protest started, the youngest aged 11. More stories to follow right after a short break. Welcome back. The US has urged Britain to review its decision allowing China's tech giant Huawei a partial role in its 5G network. Speaking to reporters before flying to London, Pompeo cautioned that American information should only pass across trusted networks. He said the US believes putting Huawei in the system creates a real risk. The Secretary of State said the US will evaluate the UK's act. Yesterday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson granted Huawei a limited role in Britain's 5G mobile network. Johnson said giving Huawei a partial role would not harm cooperation with the US. The pro-independence head of Spain's Catalonia region says he will soon call a snap election amid splits in his government's unity. In a televised address, President Quim Torra said the election would be called after the regional parliament approves Catalonia's budget. Torra said he has the responsibility to explore the true will of the Spanish government to have a real negotiation. Despite his term ending in 2021, the president was deprived of his rights as a lawmaker by the parliament following a court ruling. This led the coalition government between the two separatist parties to the brink of collapse. Catalonia has been a major driver of Spanish politics since the region unilaterally declared independence in October 2017. Australia's bushfires have now spread to the capital, Canberra. An 8,000-hectare fire is burning in the Namadgi National Park, with predicted weekday high temperatures set to intensify the blaze. The fire was accidentally sparked in the rugged mountainous area south of Canberra by a military helicopter. The heat from the aircraft landing light in already hot and dry conditions was all that was needed to set the fire. Government officials say there is no immediate threat to homes in Canberra, but the fire service has warned the blaze could pose a threat to every life in its path. Since September, bushfires have killed at least 33 people and more than 1 billion animals. In Russia, emergency services have rescued over 500 fishermen stranded on a giant ice floe that broke off the far eastern island of Sakhalin. Despite unstable ice warnings from the local emergencies ministry, 536 fishermen went ice fishing. They became stranded when the ice cracked 2 kilometers from the shore. The ministry says 15 emergency service workers, 3 boats and a hovercraft took part in the rescue. In Brazil, a university student has invented a cheaper way to make electricity. The student's new method uses just paper, graphite, and steam. Watch more in this report.
This is 22-year-old Kerry Moreira demonstrating the new technique she has developed to generate electricity at the Santa Maria Federal University. She joins together 20 pieces of square paper painted with graphite, which she then uses to power up 60 LED bulbs. Energy is produced by water molecules present in the air. This is then captured with the graphite-laced paper piled together. From that, electricity flows.
The energy that is captured in the device does not involve any electrochemical. It is to do with the ions that are present in the atmosphere. So that's another reason why this battery is sustainable and ecologically sound.
The mechanics behind the invention are powerfully simple. The accessibility of the materials and their low price could have a major impact on electricity generation for poorer communities around the world.
Today, with the development of Kelly's research, in her master's, we got enough energy to power 50-60 LEDs every 10 seconds. It's considerable amount of energy that is free. It would help people get access to low-cost lighting.
Although still in its initial stages, Moreira hopes the idea behind her invention could be magnified for homes.
The Pakistani government is organizing a 2-day conference in Kenya in a major trade outreach to Africa. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has reached Nairobi to attend Pakistan-Africa Trade Development Conference being held on Thursday and Friday. In a statement, the Foreign Office said the Commerce and Foreign Ministries are hosting the conference that will strengthen economic ties between the two countries. It said Kenyan cabinet members, dignitaries from other African states and Pakistani envoys in Africa will attend the conference. It said the move is part of Pakistan's Engage Africa initiative to forge closer ties with the African continent. The US stocks have opened higher following a surge in the shares of General Electric and American technology giant Apple. The quarterly results of Apple and General Electric overshadowed concerns over the economic impact of a fast-spreading coronavirus. The shares of Apple gained over 2% to a record after its quarterly results beat analyst expectations. The indices of S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average and Nasdaq Composite are trading in positive territories. The dollar largely firmed against other major currencies, while oil prices climbed higher. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus Special.